All right.
Hello, everyone. Sergei Burbank back again, literary manager, dramaturg of Conch Productions, and a big thank you, first of all, to these amazing artists, our incredible technical team for creating this evening of new works in a new format, and of course, everyone in the audience who joined us and is also sticking around for this brief conversation. And as we chat, please do post your comments, questions, good vibes into the chat, and we'll bring them into the conversation. So it's only left for me to introduce Karl O'Brien Williams, who is going to kick off our discussion with our artists. Karl O'Brien Williams is an award-winning playwright whose work has been produced regionally, off-Broadway, in the Caribbean and the UK. Recent projects include the book for Welcome to America, a Caribbean musical, and developing plays about LGBTQ+ lives in Jamaica. Karl is the artistic director for Brata Productions and coordinates the theater program at BMCC CUNY. And with that, I welcome and thank you, Karl, for co-moderating our chat tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll bring everyone in.
Yes, we shall. Oh, it was fantastic looking at these productions. I was just saying, we are certainly figuring out this Zoom theater, aren't we? with
howdy, hi. Hi.
Hey, Magaly.
Hey.
Oh, my goodness. This is wonderful. Listen, I don't want to waste any time because you're all fantastic. And I think the question that is burning that I want to ask right now is, what is resonating now with you, having been going through this process and, from start to finish? What's resonating now? Because you've been in the rehearsal room, writers, these ideas have been germinating. You've seen it on the page. You've handed it over to the director and the actors. So what is resonating right now as you're experiencing this, actors, and as you're seeing this work, writers and directors? And let me just go. I'm just going to go in order of my little boxes here on the screen, and I see Tyler. So Tyler, please talk to me.
What is resonating with me right now with this work, and like Zoom specifically?
Oh, yeah, you can throw in Zoom if you want. I'm not sure.
He's like, oh. No, we don't have to go into Zoom land. Well, I think that, just specifically with our show, just everything that's going on in the US right now, and like the political climate, the really, the election next week. This play, it's so relevant. Not just for the not for even just this current climate, but really just, it's embedded, this story is embedded within the story of the United States. And the way that Black people are treated in this country. So, just being a part of this was really, really special to me. And I really appreciated working with Teisha and Gretchen, and for Gretchen's words. And
nice,
of course.
Nice. Aixa, come on in as the other actor in this. Yes.
Oh man. So what should I be answering?
It's just what's resonating with you now. You got this script, you rehearsed it with Teisha, and then you performed it a couple of times. And what is resting on your heart at this moment, or in your head?
In connection to just this moment, but really honestly, it's interesting. I would say that the resolution to move forward is an interesting thing that comes to me right now. So
yeah,
even though she sat in her pain and she still struggles with it, and even though some people may go, oh, you're in denial, you're talking about fish and rice, but I think something about resilience, and I don't necessarily I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to what language right now to use. I just feel, because I'm just coming from her feeling, Claudine's feeling too, about bitterness, acknowledgement of harm, difficulty, shame, whatever, anger, all of that. But joy is the only thing that you really have that actually helps harness your larger self. Joy is it, true denial sucks, but, because at some point you have to deal with whatever you're running from. But the larger truth is that there's something in us, or I'll just say in humans, but our journey is to really re-empower ourselves versus being constantly feeling like, or replaying imagery of victim stuff. We need to get to another place. So that's all. I'm feeling.
I think that's quite valid, Aixa. And as you mentioned that word harness, Teisha, as a director who had to harness all of these emotions and then lift these words, how was this for you?
I think for us, it was really a way of trying to figure out how to, as Aixa said, move to another place. So there's a lot of different subtle ways that we put it within the piece itself. Like even the first memory board that you see, you can just look at it. It just looks like letters and numbers, but it's actually numbers that are connected to the birth date of everyone who passed. And the letters are representative of their names. So there's a moment in the piece where you see Missy, which is Tyler's character, holding like a baby. And that is just kind of going to Ayanna Stanley Jones, connecting this childlike innocence to the piece. So I think there are different ways that we can funnel emotion in our work artistically, and it all can go, sometimes it's subtext. The audience won't get it half the time, but that's okay. For us, it's intentional in terms of what we do. And that is where we're at now when it comes down to artistic work. How do you funnel all the different emotions that you're feeling in your work? Sometimes it comes out in acting. I'm an actor, but in this moment, I'm a director. This is the role I'm playing. In some moments, in some roles we play in our lives, we're constantly moving and engaging. And how do we do that in a healthy way that keeps us buoyant and keeps us excited and hopeful for life, including next week, Wednesday and Thursday, so we can keep going, whatever happens, right? We have to stay buoyant. Yeah, so there's a lot of different interplays that we do in working through emotions, and there's a lot to explore. So we just explore all of them and not try to one-note ourselves and stay multidimensional.
Exactly. So Gretchen, your work has spawned all of these thoughts and ideas. Was this your intention? What was going on when you were writing it to right now?
I guess first, I am humbled and honored that my words ever get spoken out loud. So this has been a real treasure and joy to be a part of this. This story was about something that happened here personally and locally to me. So I didn't know how it was going to resonate with everyone. But yeah, I mean, I was hoping that people would connect to it in ways. I try to write pieces where there are various interpretations. I want people to come out of it with how they feel internally and to process it in their own way. And so I was just tickled pink with Teisha and Tyler and Aixa and how they really just delved in and just broke it apart and put it back together and really went through all the emotions of, joy and uncertainty and anger and frustration and, denial and just all the emotions that could be. And then also instilling, that buoyancy. We use that word a lot, keeping it up in the air and juggled in the air so that we could feel it all. So I am just honored and privileged and pleased that my work has spurred that kind of emotion and that it got to be out in the air in the open. So thank you.
Nice. Let's keep it going with the writers. So Nelson, this title, from you see this title, you know that something's coming, right? And then it goes into this poetic nature. I saw Jesus in Tua Baja. Talk to me about this piece. And, was the intention to add lightness as well? or was it just let me just do this and see what happens?
Well, this was like, I'm not a very faith-based person. I'm a very spiritual person, but not faith-based. And this was just an exploration of like when Hurricane Maria happened and basically our country got ripped apart from us. How do you deal with it? How do you have your own faith? How do you, even if you don't have faith, how do you work through it? And something that I've spoken before about it is how Puerto Ricans go through tragedies with a smile on their face. They try to make, and that their stories they make are like the stories, if you notice, our storytelling is never very serious. We try in ways to talk about lightness in the biggest tragedies of our lives, but that's not just a storytelling technique. When I used to live in Puerto Rico, I went through 3 different hurricanes, 3 different directions, which elections in Puerto Rico are natural disasters every time. So going through all those things, I remember just growing up and being like, people just kept moving forward, just found a way to find that path, to find faith, to find that belief system that happened. I realized that my storytelling had become assimilated, Americanized, and I wanted to tell stories about our tragedy and how we deal with the tragedy, both through the Puerto Rican lens. And the only way that I could find a way was not just, the reason this is in poetry or rhythm, because it's like a kid's story. It's like a storytelling that you can tell your kids. And I feel like a lot of Puerto Rican storytelling is that. It's like, it's very much like how you tell your kids' story. So I wanted to tell a story of our biggest tragedy and our biggest triumph, which is to just keep on living even though everything got ripped, by just telling a kid's fable story, a new fable, to be able to talk. So it is not just to add lightness, but just to also to add, I guess, like a fable to the canon that we survived this too.
And Kat, you directed this piece. When you saw this script, saw the title, what was your thought in terms of like, okay, how am I going to do this on Zoom? How am I going to bring in the moment? And then from that, what do you love about it? Like, what's your favorite part?
Yeah, I mean, this is such a beautiful piece that Nelson wrote, and the one time I was lucky enough to go to Puerto Rico actually was after Hurricane Maria, and I saw firsthand the exact dichotomy that he was talking about, sort of like the destruction and joy hand in hand. So immediately reading the piece, I felt some sort of connection to it, just in terms of that past life experience. But the other thing is just, I mean, this is a piece about finding the light at the end of the tunnel and not losing hope until that point, you know, which I think we can all relate to. And specifically involving the election year, as Tyler brought up, like, I'm not going to lie, this whole year I've been doing the work, but feeling but expecting the worst. And these last 2 weeks are the first time, like, and I don't know if it's the media or whatever, where I started to get that little glimmer of hope. But then the PTSD side of me was just like, no, never hope. Like, hope is dangerous. Like, you can't go there, you know? But when I think about this piece, and I was thinking about all this as I was watching it again, yeah, like having that message of like the power is within you, and to just keep moving forward is just so strong, because like I don't know what's going to happen in a few days, but I do know that whatever happens doesn't take the power out of us to continue doing what we need to do and continue moving forward. So yeah, those were all the things I was thinking about when I was watching it again this time. And again, just like Rad and Brandon for that luminous performance. As always, it's such a pleasure watching you perform.
It's like whenever Rad says it's time to let go of insecurity and raise my people up, I'm like, you know, that's art igniting us, you know?
You know, Magaly, it's interesting that you say that, because for me, it was a line, and I think that's because of how I grew up. You know, coming from a tropical country, Jamaica, you hear this mantra coming back to, and how the pieces connect with, you know, he never gives you more than you can bear. And I really want to ask our actors, you know, Rad, how did you feel like saying that? Because I saw so many things going on in those emotions. One minute, it seemed to me like you wanted to slap Jesus, and another moment, like, let me try and believe this. So talk us through, this sort of dilemma. I don't want to put that on you, but that's what I got.
No, hey, Karl, that's a really great question. And, it makes me think about my own family back in Brazil and the way that religion and their relationship to Jesus has been their resilience and has been their full kind of, my mom had to remind me of this because for a long time I was like, why are they doing all this prejudice in the name of Jesus and all this stuff? And she's like, it's the only thing they have, when you come from when you have to find resilience through the only means you have, and so I understood that kind of like desperation to seek something. But also on the other side, it reminds me of, there's this really amazing book called Paradise Built in Hell. And it's by Rebecca Solnit. And it talks about how the actual beautiful human harmony that comes from great disaster, and how like sometimes the like weeks and months right after the disaster is when there's like the most beautiful human teamwork exhibited.
You better put that in the chat, Rad. You better write that and put that in the chat.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna write it.
Yeah,
and it made me think so much of that Paradise Built in Hell, and how that is what's been giving me hope now, is like the way my community, that we've all been showing up for each other, and that, I know my ancestors have been through many apocalypses before, and that I know we got this. Do you know what I mean? And I may not believe in Jesus as the figure of God, but I understand the idea. Like they say at the end, he could have been Buddha, Allah, Yukahu. And it's, just that matter of listening to spirit, especially in the really hard times. And so I hope that kind of answers your question.
Listen, it's 2020. That was a good answer. Let me tell you, that's a PhD thesis. You don't worry about that. So let's hear from Jesus. Let us hear from Brandon. How often do we get to play Jesus? Or Jesus, some holy figure that comes down and gives all this font of knowledge. So tell me about that.
I guess I kind of feel that way in my personal life. I'm like, man, I've learned so much. I have so much to give, So for me, honestly, and I have a very trying relationship with Jesus myself, but I do understand what Jesus represents, and so I feel that in my being, and so it was very easy to connect, knowing that what people see in God and Muhammad and Jesus and Buddha, that's in each and every one of us, and to acknowledge it in myself. I can tap into Jesus like this because Jesus always lives in me, and especially in tough times and really in the best of times as well. Like being able to access that, I think, has been really easy for me, and then really I think it's even more special to be a vessel. That it's not a story about Jesus. It's a story about Leslie, about what Rad is going through and how Rad needs to use Jesus, how Rad sees Jesus, that Jesus is everywhere. And so when I focus on Rad, when I focus on the disaster, when I focus on the situation, it's never about Jesus. Jesus is just a vessel to shed the light. Does that make sense?
Listen, if you are a religious person, of course it makes sense. I can hear my family probably clapping up and saying, "Preach, baby, yes."
So in terms of clapping, can we read some of these great notes that people are putting in the chat? Sergei, you want to start off?
Sure. So Edith Meek says, sending good wishes to the artist tonight. Congratulations and big thanks to Magaly and the Conch team for putting this series together. Susan Tenney says, brilliantly written, directed, and performed. M says, wow, that was extremely moving. Glory Cadigan says, woohoo, bravo. Some more bravos from Edith Meeks and Susan Tenney. Mike has congratulations to both teams. Great work all around. Special big to my girl Teisha. I look forward to seeing more work from her as a director. Although I have a soft spot for dramatic pieces, I was expecting comedies. I thought that's what was advertised, so business office might have to deal with some refunds. And Mike said, not that I didn't welcome what I saw. I'm always up for pieces that move me in other ways. And then
I like that one. I want us to address that when we finish reading all these comments. I want us to address that. We are addressing that.
And then, but Joanna actually has a question to throw in here. So can Gretchen speak to her process of writing a piece with such perfect pacing? The characters evolved so subtly by the climax. I was so moved.
That's a loaded question, but I'm going to tackle it. And I kind of will address that comedy thing because I think a lot of the comedy was in the absurdity in both pieces. I'm not going to speak for Nelson, but I do think that in his piece, I laugh out loud when Jesus comes out because it's crazy and it's ridiculous. But it's real. Actually, it reminded me of a picture that my friend had in her house, and it was called Jesus Laughing. And so even though that's about your piece, but in terms of my process, I like to have worlds that are already in existence. So for me, I like to put a lot of the mystery in the back end. So in the beginning, we start with this outlandish tale and this outlandish mnemonic device and all these crazy stories about this kid. And so we start, and that's usually how things go, at least in my life. When you're conversing with people, you start with the light stuff. You start with the fun stuff. Hey, how you doing? All that good stuff. You don't get to the deep stuff until later. And so that's how I am in my life. So that's how I am with my writing. A lot of it is like, boom, established world where we're moving through all the soft, superficial stuff. And then, boom, we're going into the deep stuff. So that's kind of how I write a lot of my pieces. And that's even... Wow, I'm self-discovering right now because even like the comedies or the tragedies, it all kind of works in that same way. It's the superficial up front and then we'll go to the deep end later. But so that's more or less how I go in. And I try to give a little bit, inch it in a little bit at a time so that at the end, you kind of get the full picture. But that was, I don't know if that answered the question. That was a great question. So
Sergei, do you want to speak to Mike's comment since we... co-curated this event?
Co-create. Well, so yeah, some of the thoughts, and I'm going to hand it off to you, Magaly, because this was your thought was the seed for this. But as we put out the call for scripts, we did a lot of discussing and thinking about the nature of comedy and how in a contemporary time we do sort of think of comedy as ba-dum-bum and punchlines and a laugh and an escape, and looking at it, especially theatrically, comedy is about subverting power, and it's about subverting expectations. And sometimes the result of that subversion is a laugh, but more often it's discomfort, and it's possibly expressing a discomfort that was already there. And the comedian, the jester, is the person who is brave enough to call out that discomfort. And so what I'm so excited about with all of the pieces, both Program A and Program B, is that they really delved into that sense and making us look at what we would rather not look at, which is what I haven't put this on any of the playwrights or directors or actors, but I thought is the higher duty of comedy, which is to be braver than most people are ready to be. And our expectation, I think, a lot of times with comedy is to actually be less brave, when in fact, I think it's the opposite.
I think that would be the case for American comedy, more so than comedy throughout all the international communities. and well said, of course, Sergei. The whole mission in these dark comedies was indeed to highlight the darkness, and yet give hope. Because comedy, there's always uplift. There's uplift. Not that the uplift is necessarily clear to everyone, but you don't go down, you go up. You don't go down, you go up. And at this time in our journey, there's a lot of down, and the struggle to go up is intense. And a lot of us are suffering from depression or whatever emotional handicaps that are occurring because of the weight that's dragging us down. But to know that even with the weight on us, we can find our way to the light and breathe. And that is what this work, the works that we selected, that's what our goal was for them. And each and every one of the playwrights and the actors and the directors realized our vision, my vision, and I'm ever grateful. Can I read some more of these comments? I love these comments. We missed a few. There's a great balance and interplay between the numbers and the heart in the play. That was addressed. What did we miss?
Well, right after, I think we have sending love to Ties and Tyler from Ricardo. Joanna said you answered the question perfectly, Gretchen. So, yeah. There you go.
Very well said, Edith Meeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes! From Susan Tenney and Sarah Marable. Oh, and well said, Susan Tenney. Thank you. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm reading
there.
myself. Awesome.
What I want to know is this whole talk about comedy, right? How aware were you creators, and I'm talking to all of you now, of the ability to make it light or dark? Was that something that was like ever present in the rehearsal room in looking at it? Deliberate, if you could just speak to that a little bit. And of course with the actors in terms of playing that, right? Because, when it talks about comedy, everybody gets into it. It talks about the timing, everybody got their little technique and all of that. How did all that come in? Yeah. I guess I should call on someone, right? Otherwise we're all going to shout.
No, we're going to answer, Karl. Don't worry, we're going to answer. Promise.
Relax.
I feel like that is a Zoom classroom, though, isn't it? Anybody? Okay, we'll just call on for all the teachers out there. No, I think for our piece, the comedy, like I like when comedy is, I'm old school in terms of like one-dimensional when it comes out to comedy. I like to go ha 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 and laugh the whole way through. And if I don't laugh the whole way through, then I'm like, oh, this is not comedy. So there's a part of me when I first read Gretchen's piece, I remember saying to Magaly, wait, even though I laughed at it, Magaly, this is not a comedy. Like, Magaly just kind of guided me through the very perceptions of where this piece is going, in particular with comedy. And then we landed on this idea of lightness, keeping things light until they need to get heavy. And I think sometimes we get ahead of ourselves, and sometimes we lose the comedy and the joy in life because we get ahead of ourselves. There are already people who, depends on whoever they're voting for next week, are already going, my person's not going to win, and they're already devastated about it. It's like, no, we're not at Wednesday yet. Like, let's just stay at Halloween, get some chocolate, So I think that is where we landed with our comedy, to stay in each moment and find the joy in each moment, find the buoyancy, the light that, as Magaly puts it, gets us to the top. And then when something pulls us down, we just grab it and drag it with us, right? So we keep this forward motion that is going. And not as Mike necessarily say, Mike probably expected a lot more like, ha, 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 laugh out loud kind of comedy. But it's not necessarily that. It's this idea of showing the different colors in life and how we can stay there and sometimes stay a little bit longer. And how sometimes, I don't know if anyone's ever been in pain and started laughing. Like I got up today and I had a pain in my left booty. And I was like, ha, ha, ha. I just started laughing because I was like, there's no reason for me to have a pain in my left booty. I just finished exercising. My booty was stretched. I thought, what is happening? So even through that, I'm laughing. So I think that is the part of it that we explored. Yes, cheers. With Nell said yes, melanated water.
It's not liquor.
I'm saying, get yours today.
Today.
Love it. I mean, my favorite reference point when it comes to dark comedy is Fargo. When I was able to watch this movie and laugh, I was like, okay, I love dark comedy. And it's very dark, but it does shed a spotlight on even what seems to be demonic and evil is actually hopeful. There's a hope that's inspiring people to make these horrible choices. And that's hilarious. You know, it's not destructive. It's actually, there's a beautiful goal at the end. And that your death is just going to get me to a beautiful goal. So and the thing is, in reality, in life, if you look at all these ogres that we have in the political sector and see them as nothing as ogres, then how are we going to be anything but oppressed? Right? But if we can see the light at the end of the tunnel of something good happening, then we can go out there and vote, right? I guess that's what keeps everybody setting on those 4-hour lines. I know. 4-hour lines, people.
I was just gonna say, I don't think there's any better analogy about writing comedy than waking up with a pain on your booty, on the left booty, and I'm laughing about it. I think that is comedy. That right there is comedy. I wake up with such weird pain sometimes, and I just laugh because I'm like, oh my God, when did I get this old?
Exactly.
It's hard to beat, Nelson. It's hard to beat. I feel like everybody, all the writers watching are going to be like paying Teisha for that line now because already.
Listen, it's one of those things. It's like a lot of the time that I live my life and things that I've seen through my life, it's always been. I mean, I live in Puerto Rico. It's like it's what we were saying. It's like, yay, life is beautiful, but everything about being oppressed by the U.S. with the government, blah blah blah, is terrible. So usually you're dancing, you're smiling, you're laughing with your friends to the fact that your own culture is getting decimated through it. So you learn how to wake up with your pain in your booty and laugh about it because that's the least of your problems. You know? So I think I've never written a comedy in my life. I've never written something that I think is a comedy, but I think that a lot of people like to think of tragedy and they don't think about the actual human aspects of tragedy is that we are human. We are acting like human and humans like to find a light. It's like Magaly was saying about the light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't even have to be at the end of the tunnel. You're trying to make you're trying to carve a hole that can bring you light in the middle of the tunnel. That's all you want to do. And I think comedies come from bringing those holes in the middle of that tunnel. It's about finding that idea that you don't even understand. Like I think about now that my wife is about to have a child. I think about the movie Knocked Up and how sometimes I laughed about it when I was a young man because the jokes were funny for bros. And I was like 22. Like now that I'm 36, I look at it and it's still funny as hell because if I was that age and I was having a kid, that's exactly how we would do it. But that movie is not at all a comedy. That movie in itself is a drama of an irresponsible man-child that cannot get it together to raise a kid. And at the end, he gets it together to raise a kid, which shows you the whole movie was about a man-child becoming an adult, about growth. But they make dick jokes and things like that, which is what people will do because they don't want to admit to themselves that they're kids or as adults. And that whole movie's comedy comes from a bunch of kids telling each other, we're good. And at the end, it tells you, no, you're not. You have to grow up. So like most comedies, you're laughing at the fact that you're laughing at them, but you're not laughing at them. You're laughing at the things that they're showing because you know that it's funny because it's humiliating to the characters. And we shouldn't feel humiliation for the main characters.
Yeah. Bro, I was just going to tag on to what you were saying because I'm Puerto Rican as well. So I feel Nelson on a real kinship level. But if you're not laughing, you're crying, for one. And for two, what else is comedy but just tragedy plus time and space? We look back and we're like, oh, isn't that hilarious? But in it, we're like feeling the tragedy or whatever. But yeah, I love that analogy. We're knocking through holes to bring out the light because we can't wait till the end of the tunnel. So if we're not laughing, we're crying.
Yeah. So let me read some more comments. I really enjoyed the development of Gretchen Teisha's piece. I really appreciate the peeling back of the layers and the use of technology. And regarding technology, Veronica Vera, Kira Bowie, their names are on our credits. They're amazing stage managers, designers, virtual theater mavens. They're goddesses, okay? They're the reason why this technology was so beautiful. I mean, just watching the water behind Leslie during I saw Jesus, I was just like, oh my God, the water's moving. Oh my goodness. And it just added so many layers to the storytelling, and we wouldn't have done it without them. Glory Cadigan says, sometimes we laugh or smile as a way to survive. Right? Right?
Well, people, this has been great. Listen, Blue Light Series, Conch Productions, always bringing together such fantastic artists. And I mean, we're giving up our designers, our stage crew. A special shout out to the costume department, because some of you actors had lots of changes.
You mean the closets?
Listen, what's going on now?
To the closets of our actors.
Actors of
The props.
To the closets of every actor here.
Listen. Those props are kicking, those books, look at the light.
Yes.
Attention to detail.
Choreography.
This is how we create theater in the Zoom space.
Yes.
Yes, Karl. Yes.
So, and on that perfect note, this is the final live artist chat. This is the greatest live artist chat of Blue Light Series Fall 2020. So we would like to thank the artists who made Part B possible, playwrights Gretchen Suarez-Pena, Nelson Diaz Marcano, directors Teisha, Duncan, and Kat Yen, and actors Aixa Kendrick, Tyler Cruz, Rad Pereira, and Brandon Gregory. Our production team, our excellent production team, is stage managers Kyra Bowie and Veronica Vera, and video editor Andre Sutherland.
So he's mentioning video editor Andre Sutherland because due to a lot of demand from people who just don't have the time to watch when we have this thing up, we're going to be rebroadcasting the video of the 4 plays that were featured in the Blue Light Series. So keep your eye on our website, on our social media, so that you can see and when we start streaming it. And then it's going to be a really nominal fee, so everybody can enjoy these amazing people at your own time, not when we say so. We would like to give a special thanks to HB Studio for co-producing this event. And yes. And to the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, their supporters, and to our Conch Productions community of donors and audience members. May these plays that we were just talking about and the plays that were featured in Program A, may they inspire conversation. I mean, October 2020 was crazy, beautiful because of these artists. And these artist chats are available on Facebook and YouTube, so you can watch them whenever you want to. But what would this be without these amazing artists wanting to share their time with us and share their viewpoints and us dialoguing with you? Like I said before, follow us on social media. Visit our website, www.conch.productions. And one final response, congrats. Oh, can you read that? I don't want to read the congrats to me. Somebody read that.
Congrats, Magaly, on such a successful presentation of so many brilliant artists. Keep rocking it. Thank you very much, Gloria. That's
Thank
right.
you, Glory. Thank you, Glory. And thank you to everyone. Be well, be safe, be glorious. Conch Productions, Caribbean American artists, writing all the way. Good night.
Good night.
Thank
you all. Good night.